Last scene of the Tory candidate. But it's funny, I had my own little issues when I first came, as John will remember, when he used to take me around the election the first time in 1983. And some of you who may know, I don't know, it's still there actually, the Bush pub in Chiltern, which is, let us say, it's for the strong-minded. Okay? So the guys, you know, in there would sort of twos up the arms and looking pretty heavy and everything. And John says, I don't think I'd go in there and canvass that one if I was you. And I said, no, come on, we're going to go in. So we go in. And it's like the kind of Milky Bar kid, you know, you walk in, everything stops. We're just going up to the bar, and John, this is 1983, right, it's my first campaign. He knows he's got this lawyer up from London, right, running in the constituency. He whispers to me as we approach the bar, he says, whatever else you do, don't ask for a Perrier water. Which I didn't. Thanks to your good advice. Right, anyway, it's a wonderful pleasure to be with you. I'm going to set out why I want a four-term Labour government. So, when I was Prime Minister, I was known as an optimist. I still am. I'm optimistic about Britain, its future, and the opportunities the world holds for us, provided we take the right decisions, imbued with the right attitude of mind. Strange as it may seem, the financial crisis does not diminish this optimism. The way we're coming through the crisis, instead, reinforces it. We're not out of the woods yet, but we are on the path out. And this did not happen by chance. It happened by choice. If you think back 18 months, think back to the collapse of September 2008 and where the world was then. It was poised on the brink of catastrophe. The prediction of many economists, commentators, even at least in private leaders, was that we were doomed to repeat the collapse of the 1930s. The spectre of prolonged recession stalked the corridors of political and economic power. Britain, like all other major nations, was hit hard by the crisis. In a deluge such as this, no one escapes. But now, March 2010, Britain has just had a budget signalling a return to growth, a slow, difficult recovery, but a recovery nonetheless. The world economy is now similarly poised, not for catastrophe, but for recuperation. Now, it will mean, here and elsewhere, adjustments, tough action on deficits, changes in the way both public and private sectors work. And all round the globe, in cabinets, in boardrooms, in workplaces, such a debate is happening on how best we proceed. And we cannot understate the pain some people have gone through as a consequence of the global crisis or the insecurity they now face. For many young people, and especially young families or people whose livelihoods have been badly hit, the anxiety is not abated, it continues. But what we can say is, compared to the fear of what might have been, we have emerged better than virtually any predicted. Hard decisions lie ahead, undoubtedly. But though the sea is still rough, the storm has subsided. And this is for a simple reason, both in respect of Britain and of the world. The right decisions at the outset of this crisis were taken. Governments were mobilized, the financial sector put on emergency support, demand stimulated, and most of all, there was an immediate recognition that decisive action was necessary and urgent. At the moment of peril, the world acted. Britain acted. And that decision to act required experience, judgment, and boldness. It required leadership. And Gordon Brown supplied it. Since then, Gordon and Alistair Darling have been striving to keep the country moving, capable of meeting not just future challenges, but seizing future opportunities. And the issue for the future is very clear. How does Britain emerge from the financial crisis? How do we compete in the new markets? How do we re-energize our dynamism, enterprise, our sense of possibility? And this is not just about policy, but about mindset. It's about who gets the future. That's always the political question. Who understands the way the world is changing and can be comfortable in it? Who sees the excitement where others simply see the fear? The New Industries, New Jobs paper from Peter Mandelson, for me, correctly identifies both challenge and opportunity. It is the right judicious mix of government and market, reserving for the first the role it only can play, and giving the second the help it needs to prosper. It represents a vision of how Britain can do well and how individuals and families can do better. It's a platform for the hope of prosperity to come. So now our country has to debate the direction for our future. And it's a big thing for Labour to win a fourth term. Remember, prior to 1997, Labour had never won 2 successive full terms. And now we've won 3. So it's a big moment for the party. But of course, most of all, it is a momentous decision for the country. The tough thing about being in government, especially as time marches on, is that the disappointments accumulate, the public becomes less inclined to give the benefit of the doubt, the call for a time to change becomes easier to make, the prospect of change becomes more attractive. But as I always used to say when some in our ranks urged upon me a mantra of time for a change in 1997, it's actually the most vacuous political slogan in politics. Because time for a change begs the question, change to what exactly? And the reason an election that seemed certain to some in its outcome is now in sharp contention lies precisely in that question. As the issue has ceased to be what makes me angry about the government, and instead has focused on, well, if I get change, what change exactly am I getting? So the race has narrowed. Because that is not a question readily or coherently answered. And insofar as it can be answered, gives as much cause for anxiety as for reassurance. On some issues, like racial equality, the Conservatives have left behind the prejudice of the past, and I welcome that. But when it comes to the big policy issues, there is a puzzle that has turned into a problem that has now become a long, hard pause for thought. Where are they centred? Is there a core? Think of all the phrases you associate with their leadership. And the phrase, you know where you stand with them, is about the last description you would think of. They seem like they haven't made up their minds about where they stand. And so the British public finds it hard to make up its mind about where it stands. In uncertain times, there's a lot to be said for certain leadership. What happens after a long period of one party in government is this. The flip side of change being attractive is that the public